Hi again, here we are to continue the saga of the custom table view cell with cats. And in the last video, I created a custom class called CatCell2TableViewCell, and then I assigned it to the UI TableViewCell and storyboard, and then I created IB outlets and IB actions for all of the elements inside my custom cell. So now what we need to do is we want to use this cell in our project here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up the assistant editor and switch back to UI table view. And here, I have this cell for row at index path method, right? And this is where we're drawing the cell into, the table view, or creating cells, from our data. And what I need to do here is when I use this DQ reusable cell with identifier method, I need to name the cell, by its identifier in storyboard, right? So when I go to storyboard here and I click on the cell, and right now you can see I clicked, but it selected the label, right? So I need to make sure I'm selecting the cell. So this time I've got the cell. And when I select it and I look in the property inspector, you can see it says identifier. And this is the name of our cell. It's called cat cell number 2. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that name. And when I switch back to my view controller here, I'm going to paste the name into the identifier string here. Okay, now what's going to happen is DQ reusable cell with identifier is going to return a UI table view cell, actually an optional UI table view cell, right? But our cell is a custom cell, right? So if it returns a UI table view cell, the compiler is going to see a UI table view cell and think that we only have, the standard table view elements like image view and, text label and, detail label. I forget what they're all called, right? But we have some custom labels like cat name label and cat age label and things like that. So what we need to do is we need to cast this table view cell that's being returned here from DQ reusable cell with identifier as a cat table view cell, or actually in our case a cat cat cell number 2 table view cell, right? So it's this one, right? Cat cell table view cell. So that's the one that we just created, right? And we want to make sure we have the as exclamation point, right? So we're going to cast it as this and unwrap it, right? So that's pretty good. And then I'm gonna just delete all this stuff here, and we'll retype it, right? So we've got that, and my code here just gets a cat out of our array, with index path.row. So there's a cat, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, cat dot name. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, I'm going to say cell dot cat name label, right? And you can see now it sees all of the properties that we created over here, right? So it can see cat image, cat name, cat age, right? And then, since this is a label, we can set its text properties. We can say text equals, cat dot name, right? And then we can say cell dot age, or it's cat age, right? So we'll say cat age label dot text, and we can say this equals cat dot age, and age is an integer, so, and age label is text, so we need to cast this, or convert it to a string, right? So we'll do this. We'll wrap it in the whatever they call that operator, I forget, right? And then what else do we want to do? Maybe the switch we should set to the like value, right? So we'll say cell dot cat switch dot on. Okay, so that's a Boolean value, and it determines whether the switch is on or off. And we can set that to cat dot like, or liked, right? And this is a Boolean value of our cat object. so we can match it up to this, right? And then what about the image, right? Well, cat cell has a cat image view, and we can set its image property to an image, right? So our cat object here, if you recall, we took a look. Let's take another look at it. It has a name string and another string called image name, okay? So this is a string, though it's not an image, okay? So if we're going to set an image here, this image needs to be a, if I put that, get rid of that equal sign, yeah, you can see here that image needs to be a UI image, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new UI image, and we'll make an image, and there's a bunch of ways you can make an image here. The one that we want is named string, right? So we can take a named string, and that will refer to an image in our library. And I've got a bunch of images here that I imported already. So, and you know, cat dot image name is a string, so we can use the image name of the cat here to get the image, right? And then assign that to the cat image view. So there we go. So that's pretty good. Why don't we test now with the play button here? And that's a good sign. Build succeeded, right? At any moment now. Oh, there we go. And there's our custom cells, right? So we got the name, the age, the color, and the cat picture, right? And there's our switch. These are all set to false right now because the cats are all, you know, nobody likes cats, I guess, right? So they're all false. But anyway, this guy, you can see these guys are a little bit out of proportion. So if we want to set the proportion for the pictures, we can go to storyboard and set, you got to click on the image here, make sure you get the image view. And we can set it to view mode. Instead of scale to fill, we'll choose aspect fill. How about that, right? And so we'll test again. And there we go. So that's better proportion there, right? So my constraints are not looking very good there, but anyway, so that's okay for such quick work. So anyway, there you go. So we got our cell is functioning now. And you know, if we want to create actions now where you can, you say, click on these buttons here, what we'll do is we'll go into the cat table view cell. And what we want to do, so I'm back in cat cell number 2, right? So that's our custom table view cell. And what I want to do is I want to create a protocol. So I'm going to say protocol cat cell number 2 delegate. I already have a cat cell delegate in the other file, so I got to put the number 2 in there. And then we'll close it with the curly braces like this. And so now we're going to decide how other classes are going to, you know, receive information from us. What they do with it and how they handle it is up to them, but we get to decide how we're going to send it out, okay? So maybe we'll have a function that will be cat button pressed or something, right? I don't know. Let me think of it. Maybe we need a better one. How about cat button? Yeah, we'll just call it that. How about cat button? And then, you know, we'll just put a function in there, right? So if you press the cat button down here, someone else will know about it, right? Now the thing is, what we need to do is we need to tell our delegate which cell you clicked on, right? Because we're going to have multiple copies of this cat cell, one for every cat. And when you click the button in one of those cells, we need to know which cell. So as far as we're concerned here, self inside here is the cell. So it is one of the cells. It's the particular cell where that button that you tapped on, or where the particular, you know, switch was located, okay? So what we want to do is we want to pass that cell on to our delegate, and then the delegate can figure out from that cell what's going on, okay? Because it'll know every cell is unique, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a sender, okay? And that's going to be a cat2 table view cell. So when you tap on this button, we know that you are tapping from a particular cat cell number 2 type table view cell, and we're going to pass on that particular cell to the delegate. Okay. Let's imagine you did the same thing with the switch. So over here, what I'll do is I'll say function cat switch changed, right? And what we'll do is we'll send the sender, right? So we'll say sender. Oops, let's check out my spelling there. Right? And we'll say sender. And sender is, again, it's a cat cell, cat table view cell number 2, right? And you know, if you change the switch, maybe we want to also pass on the current value of the switch. So we'll just say, you know, how about on, or let's call it like. Okay. So it's true if you like the cat and you turn the switch on, or false if you didn't, right? So we'll set this to a Boolean. Okay, so here we can pass 2 values. So we're going to pass the cell itself, and we'll pass the state of the switch. Okay, so remember, in a protocol, we don't define the body of the function or the code block for it. We just define the signature. Okay, and the delegate can decide how it's going to handle that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to give the cat cell a delegate variable, right? So I'll make a var, I'll call it delegate, and it is going to be a cat cell number 2 delegate. Okay, so it's got to match this guy. So anything that we assign here has to be one of these, and in being one of these, it has to implement, you know, these 2 methods. Okay, and we'll mark this with a question mark to say that it's optional, because maybe you might make a cell and, you know, or you might make a cell and somehow the delegate doesn't get set, or you want to make a cell that you want to make a copy of this cell, but you don't want to set the delegate for some reason. Okay, so we'll just mark that as optional. So there we go. I think we're kind of set so far. So now that we've got the protocol all worked out, now what we need to do is we need to decide what these buttons are going to do. Okay, so down here, when you tap the cat button, what we'll do is we'll check the delegate first. So we'll say, hey, if delegate, or delegate is not equal to nil. Okay, I'll do this in 2 different ways. You can do this a couple ways. I'll say, hey, you know, if the delegate is not nil, then let's say delegate dot cat button, right? And the sender will be self. Okay, so we're just notifying, you know, our delegate that someone tapped the cat button. Let's do the same thing with the switch. I'll write the switch a little bit differently. I'm going to write it if let delegate equal self dot delegate. And in this, we're essentially going to check the delegate, and if it's not nil, we'll assign it to this other delegate variable, and then we'll use that variable here, and this time we'll call on cat switch changed. Okay, so sender again is going to be self, and then the like value will be the value of the switch, and we can actually get the switch either from this variable or from the sender here, because the sender to this method is the UI switch. So we'll do that idea there. We'll say sender dot on. Okay, so these are written a little bit differently here. This one, you'll see I have to use the question mark to unwrap the delegate property, because it's an optional, right? And over here, you know, the if let unwraps the optional, and if it finds nil, it skips over it, right? Because that counts as a false, and otherwise the value of the delegate gets put in this variable. So here we don't have to unwrap it, right? So anyway, so there we go, right? So now what are we going to do? Well, once we have this set up, we need to go to our view controller, and the view controller needs to declare itself as a cat cell delegate. And I did it in my last example as cat cell, so I'm going to remove that one. And what we'll want to do here is we'll want to do cat cell number 2 delegate, okay, because that's the new file that we just created. So we're going to declare ourselves as a cat cell delegate, and then immediately we'll get an error, right? And it'll say that we don't conform to the cat cell number 2 delegate protocol, right? And that means that we don't implement these two methods. So view controller, if it's going to be a cat cell number 2 delegate, it has to implement cat button and cat switch changed, okay? So what we'll do is we'll go back here, and maybe right here, right above cell for row at index path, I'll implement the method, what is it, cat. I'll just start typing cat button, and then it'll code hint me because it knows that we're a delegate for that protocol, so it knows that we should be implementing that method, right? And then, just you can do anything you want here, but I'll just print a message. I'll say, cat button tapped, okay? And then we also want to implement cat switch changed. So I'll type that one in, and we'll print a message here, and we'll say cat switch changed, right? And you might want to get to the actual cat object in the array from this call, right? Because maybe when you change the like value here, we want to update the like value in the array, and we can do that like this. Over here I'll say let index path equal table view dot index path for cell. Okay, so this method allows you to pass in a cell, a table view cell reference, and it will return the index path for that cell. So for us, sender is a cat cell number 2, which is one of these table view cells. So what we can do is we can say sender, right? And then this method will return the index path for that cell. And so our cat objects are at the index path.row in the array here, so we can say, array, oops, it's got to be lowercase, array, bracket, index path dot row, and then I can say dot liked equals like, right? So we could take this value and pass it back here. Now, this index path right here, or index path for cell, returns an optional, so we should probably write it as if let, like that, and then we'll maybe put all this in here, okay? So there we go, right? Let's give it a try. Oh yeah, we got to do one more thing, sorry. So we've got everything set up. The one thing we need to do is when we create a cell, we need to assign ourselves as the delegate. So I'm going to go back to cell for row at index path, and then I'm going to add one more line here that says cell.delegate. And you'll see it code hints me for this because it knows that we're a cat cell, and cat cells have a delegate property, and we'll assign ourself as the delegate. Okay, so assigning ourself as a delegate assigns this view controller as the delegate here to the cat cell, which takes us back over here, right? And when we're the delegate, we can call delegate.catButton or delegate.catSwitchChanged. And so, since the view controller is the delegate, this will take us back over here, and it allows us to call these methods in the delegate, right? So we'll give it a quick test here and see what happens. So there's our cat, and then when I click the switch, you can see it says cat switch changed, And when I click the button, it says cat button tapped, right? So you can see that, right? And, if we're curious about what cell that was too, maybe we could say, over here I could say index path dot row, right? Actually, what I need to do is if I do this, since I did the if-let syntax, I got to make sure that I put this inside the if statement there. So anyway, we'll print the row number there and give that a test to make sure this is working. So that one's just on the switch, right? And we'll give it a quick test here. I click the button, it says cat button tapped, and I click the switch and it says, hey, switch changed on number 2. So this is cat 0, cat 1, and cat 2. There's cat number 1 and cat 0, right? So anyway, so thanks for watching, and I hope that's helpful to you working with table views and setting up a custom table view cell.